The story begins by showing an earthbender being chased by Fire Nation soldiers after successfully stealing a scroll containing plans for an attack on the Fire Nation. Eventually, he sacrifices himself to deliver the scroll to the Earth Kingdom. However, it's revealed that Fire Lord Sozin leaked the scroll intentionally to conquer not only the Earth Kingdom, but also the other territories. In this world, there are 4 regions, each with people who can bend their element: earth, water, fire, and air. Peace among these regions is maintained by the Avatar, one person who can bend all 4 elements. When an Avatar dies, their spirit is reincarnated. But since the last Avatar's death, the new one, expected among the Airbender, hasn't appeared. So Fire Lord Sozin plans to attack the Airbender temples, taking advantage of the Avatar's absence. On the other hand, the tale follows a young Airbender boy named Aang, who is the most talented in history and is destined to be the next Avatar. Though he hasn't been told yet because he's still not mature enough, after hearing rumors of the Fire Nation's impending attack, his mentor finally explains it to him. Feeling overwhelmed by his responsibilities, he decides to run away with his flying bison, Appa. However, they encounter a storm at sea, and Aang's evader powers inadvertently freeze them both. Meanwhile, back at the Airbender Temple, that same night, Fire Nation troops have arrived on the orders of Fire Lord Sozin. Initially, their powers should be equal, but taking advantage of the Comet's festival night, where Fire Nation abilities are enhanced, they proceed to destroy the temple, leaving no one behind. The scene then shifts to a region in the Southern Water Tribe, a snowy region where Katara, a young woman, practices her water-bending skills. She lives with her brother Sokka, who, despite his foolishness at times, takes care of their family since their parents are no longer around. With the Fire Nation seeking to capture waterbenders, Katara secretly trains her water-bending skills. One day, they are surprised to discover a giant iceberg, which is not supposed to be there. When Katara uses her waterbending abilities, the iceberg shatters, releasing a wave of energy, revealing the frozen Aang and his flying bison. At the same time in the Fire Nation, Prince Zuko also witnesses the event, then claimed that the light was a sign of the Avatar's appearance. However, his uncle named Uncle Iroh, a former general, is seemed relaxed. But because Prince Zuko has been banished by his father and will only be allowed to return once he captures the Avatar, he ignores his uncle's words, because that is the only way he can restore his honor as the crown prince of the Fire Nation. On the other hand, Katara decides to bring Aang back to her village. When they arrive, only her grandmother recognizes that Aang is an airbender. This revelation sparks a debate because everyone believed airbenders had disappeared. As Aang wakes up, he's confused about his location. After explaining that he fell into the sea during a storm on the night of the Great Comet Festival, Katara's grandmother, upon hearing this, then explains him that the last Comet Festival happened 100 years ago, when the Fire Nation attacked the other 3 territories and wiped out all the airbenders. This news shocks Aang, who realizes he has been frozen for a century. Realizing he's been trapped in the iceberg for a century, Aang understands he's now over 112 years old. Despite his age, he still acts like a regular kid. However, the truth that he's the last airbender and the Avatar saddens him deeply, especially as he realizes he has lost all his family. Suddenly, their peace is interrupted by a Fire Nation ship led by Prince Zuko, who is searching for the missing Avatar. Initially, Sokka considers handing Aang over to protect the village, but Katara insists on sheltering him as humanity's last hope. Ultimately, Sokka decides to protect Aang. However, when Prince Zuko orders his troops to attack the village, Aang feels guilty and chooses to surrender himself to keep the villagers safe. Witnessing Aang's sacrifice, Katara and Sokka are determined to rescue him. In prison, Aang has a brief conversation with Uncle Iroh, who treats him kindly, unlike others from the Fire Nation. Aang seizes the opportunity to steal the prison key using his airbending skills. And he also snatches a history book about past avatars that belongs to Prince Zuko before making his escape from the ship. Though Zuko's attack grazes his flying staff, Sokka and Katara, along with Appa, arrive just in time to save him. After their successful escape, they can't go back to Katara's village, so they head to Aang's homeland. However, upon arrival, Aang is shocked to find it utterly destroyed, and he's devastated to see his mentor's lifeless corpse. After discovering that his home and entire air nomad tribe were destroyed by the Fire Nation a century ago, Aang decides to fully embrace his role as the Avatar. His first step is to visit Kyoshi Island, a place of significance for the previous Avatar from the Earth Kingdom, as noted in the book he took from Zuko. Upon reaching Kyoshi Island, they find that the people there are wary of outsiders due to the ongoing war. They are promptly arrested by Kyoshi Island warriors and taken for questioning. However, after explaining that Aang is the Avatar, they are permitted to stay for 2 days to learn what they need to know. Meanwhile, Prince Zuko is on the move with his uncle, heading to the nearest Fire Nation base to search for Aang. Zuko is concerned that if news of the Avatar's return spreads, it will attract more rivals, reducing his chances to prove himself to his father. They discreetly request maps and surveillance reports without revealing their true purpose. However, their actions raise suspicions from Commander Zhao, one of the base's commanders. With a tip-off from one of Zuko's soldiers, Zhao learns that they are indeed tracking the Avatar. Without delay, Zhao decides to act first and heads to Kyoshi Island upon hearing reports of a flying bison sighting. Fortunately, Zuko also realizes that the person is trying to deceive him and rushes to follow them to Kyoshi Island. Meanwhile, Katara and Aang finally discover a clue in the book suggesting that the Avatar's spirit resides within the Avatar themselves, which means all the information Aang needs is already within him, and he just needs to find a way to connect with his ancestors. Without wasting much time, they hurry to Kyoshi Avatar Temple to try to communicate with their ancestors. On the other side, Commander Zhao and his troops arrive at Kyoshi Island and launch an attack to find Aang. Zuko's forces are also in pursuit, but Uncle Iroh suggests taking a different approach. He advises Zuko to head straight to the Kyoshi Temple on the coast, believing that Aang may be there seeking his Avatar identity. Katara witnesses Prince Zuko and his crew advancing through the forest and attempts to intervene, but her waterbending skills are not yet fully developed, leading to her defeat by Zuko. Meanwhile, Aang successfully enters the spirit world and connects with Avatar Kyoshi, where Aang is scolded severely for disappearing for so long, causing the extinction of the entire Airbender tribe and the rise of the Fire Nation. Avatar Kyoshi then explains to Aang the crucial role of an Avatar in maintaining balance and protecting the world. She emphasizes the importance of strength and fearlessness in facing enemies. Without hesitation, Kyoshi temporarily possesses Aang's body to confront the Fire Nation soldiers invading her village, demonstrating the Avatar's power and resolve. Avatar Kyoshi then effortlessly defeats dozens of Fire Nation soldiers attacking the village, instilling a newfound hope in humanity. However, this victory comes with consequences as it reveals the Avatar's return, prompting the Fire Nation to intensify their pursuit. To evade capture, Aang decides to head to the Northern Water Tribe. After ensuring the safety of Kyoshi's village, Avatar Kyoshi reveals a vision of the chaos awaiting the Northern Water Tribe, motivating Aang to prioritize learning waterbending there. Meanwhile, Commander Zhao exploits the failure on Kyoshi Island to collaborate with Zuko and Uncle Iroh in their hunt for the Avatar. Unbeknownst to them, Zhao also aims to gain favor with Fire Lord Ozzy by informing him of the Avatar's reappearance, disregarding Zuko's previous warning to keep it secret. On the other hand, the inhabitants of the Ba Sing Se region, the capital of the Earth Kingdom, intended to sneak in and eliminate Fire Lord Ozzy to stop the war. However, they are instead manipulated by Prince Zuko's sister named Azula, who possesses exceptional firebending skills beyond others. They are caught and burned alive by Fire Lord Ozzy, who demonstrates mastery over various firebending techniques. He then reveals a letter from Commander Zhao, stating that Zuko had found the Avatar, where this makes Azula quite annoyed to hear about her brother's achievement. Meanwhile, Aang and his friends in their journey to the Northern Water Tribe encounter an airbender flying towards Omashu City, the last stronghold of the Earth Kingdom. They manage to enter the stronghold with the help of a youth named Jet, a freedom fighter who intends to seek revenge after his parents became victims of the Fire Nation. On the other side, Prince Zuko, Uncle Iroh, and Commander Zhao discuss Aang's whereabouts, where they suspect Aang will stop in a city where there are no Fire Nation troops. According to the information Commander Zhao obtained from his informant, it is likely that they will stop in Omashu City, where it is the only territory in the Earth Kingdom that cannot be reached by the Fire Nation. However, Zuko can't bring his troops there, where he eventually only follows along with Uncle Iroh. Meanwhile, Aang arrives at Omashu City, known for its unique delivery chute system, supported by a combination of earthbending and gravity. However, it turns out that upon arrival inside, what Aang saw was not an airbender, but only ordinary people gliding using a device similar to those used by airbenders. Aang then encounters Tio, who uses a glider due to his disability. Tio explains that his father, a mechanic, modifies airbenders' flying staffs. Not long after, a sudden explosion occurred, injuring some residents. Eventually, Aang and Katara immediately helped with their abilities. After successfully extinguishing the fire, Tio's father then invited them to his house, where Tio explained that the recent explosion was caused by Fire Nation spies deliberately terrorizing the place. He also explained that his father is a mechanic who works for the ruler of Omashu thanks to his brilliant inventions. Upon arriving at Omashu City, Aang and his friends, now responsible for everyone's safety, decide to help capture the Fire Nation spies. They then split up tasks, with Aang and Tio search for the explosion's origin. Sokka assists Tio's father with a hot air balloon design that will soon be given to King Omashu, and Katara unexpectedly encounters Jet again. Katara then witnesses Fire Nation spies exchanging information with Tio's father. From this, Katara learned that Tio's father was actually part of the Fire Nation spies, where Jet, along with other children known as the Freedom Fighters, takes action to eliminate these Fire Nation spies. Meanwhile, Aang and Tio, upon arriving at the scene, instead of finding Fire Nation spies, they saw Jet's cloak and belongings, which means the mastermind behind the explosion terror earlier was not the Fire Nation but Jet's gang themselves. This was reinforced when Aang found explosive materials capable of creating jelly bombs strong enough to blow up a building. Upon returning to Tio's house, Katara, who previously helped Jet eliminate some Fire Nation spies, denies her involvement. Instead, she accuses Tio's father of trading with the enemy. Katara decides to confront Jet about this revelation. It turns out that Jet's own group orchestrated the explosion, aiming to eliminate King Bu Midu to their dissatisfaction with his rule. They plan to use jelly bombs disguised as Tio's father's invention to assassinate the king. Katara, seeing the severity of their plan, rushes to stop Tio's father with Aang and Sokka. However, they are intercepted by Prince Zuko and Uncle Iroh. Aang faces off against Prince Zuko, while Katara and Sokka race to prevent the bomb's detonation. Using the earthbending delivery chute system, Katara and Sokka quickly reach the palace's top, and Katara uses her waterbending to neutralize the jelly bomb and prevent disaster. On the other hand, Prince Zuko's ambition blinds him to the danger of using firebending in enemy territory. As soon as he unleashes his firebending in his fight against Aang, earthbending troops immediately appear and intend to capture them. In a selfless act, Uncle Iroh creates a diversion to allow Zuko to escape, while Aang is apprehended by the authorities of Omashu. In prison, Aang reunites with Uncle Iroh, where Iroh shares insights into Zuko's character, revealing that Zuko's actions stem from a desire to regain his honor after being banished by his father. Zuko's mission to capture Aang is his only chance to return to the Fire Nation. Iroh also recounts how Zuko saved his life, leading him to choose to accompany Zuko and serve his sentence. In the past, Iroh was a famous Fire Nation war general with the nickname Dragon of the West, until all of that changed when his only son fell in battle, causing him to lose his purpose in life. Despite being deemed a coward by his family for advocating peace, Zuko's influence led Iroh to renounce violence and become Zuko's mentor. Shortly after their conversation, they were separated. Uncle Iroh was taken to a forced labor camp by the earthbending troops, who harbored deep resentment towards the Fire Nation due to past brutality, and Aang was asked to go meet the king. This experience solidified Iroh's understanding that war brings suffering to all. Meanwhile, Prince Zuko managed to escape Omashu City and infiltrated the prison to rescue his uncle. Disguised as a soldier, he arrived too late to intercept Iroh, so Zuko had to rush to chase him before he was put into the forced labor camp. At the same time, Sokka and Katara sought a way to rescue Aang. Tio's father then revealed a secret tunnel built by their ancestors leading to the Omashu Palace. Despite rumors of evil spirits guarding it, Sokka and Katara decided to risk it as they had no other option. Inside the tunnel, Sokka and Katara find themselves navigating a labyrinthine cave, but their path is guided by a giant badger mole, which leads them toward the Omashu Palace instead of posing a threat. On the other hand, Aang finally meets with King Buma, the eccentric leader of the Earth Kingdom, who turns out to be Aang's old friend, who should be of the same age as him and managed to live until now. Despite their friendship, Bumi harbors resentment towards Aang as the Avatar, blaming him for the ongoing war's devastation. This trauma leads Bumi to isolate Omashu from the conflict, refusing to engage with the Fire Nation. Instead of being happy after reuniting with his old friend, King Bumi instead challenges Aang to a one-on-one duel, where he wants to vent his resentment and also teach Aang about how difficult it is to face a century-long war, after the disappearance of the Avatar who should have been the balance for the four nations, where Aang, who has no intention of fighting King Bumi, is forced to deal with him only by defending himself during the fight. Even in King Bumi's final attack, Aang is forced to choose between them to be saved to demonstrate the suffering of war that he has not experienced until now. Until finally Sokka and Katara arrive, prompting King Bumi to recognize that Aang's journey as the Avatar will rely on his friends. Feeling empowered by their support, King Bumi decides to rejoin the fight against the Fire Nation and encourages Aang to continue his mission to the Northern Water Tribe. Meanwhile, Prince Zuko catches up with the troops escorting Uncle Iroh and demonstrates his skill by defeating some soldiers without harming them. Despite facing aggression, Zuko chooses not to retaliate violently, prioritizing his uncle's well-being. With Uncle Iroh injured, Zuko returns to his ship, reluctantly letting Aang and the others go. As Aang and his companions continue their journey to the Northern Water Tribe, they encounter a scorched forest, a reminder of the consequences of Aang's previous actions. Feeling guilty, they seek refuge in a nearby settlement to rest and reflect on their path forward. In this village, the villagers seem wary of outsiders, reacting as if they've seen ghosts upon Aang and his friend's arrival. They share tales of strange disappearances in the village, suspecting spirits or gennies rather than the Fire Nation. Aang realizes these missing villagers might have crossed into the spirit world. They quickly head to an area where Aang senses the boundary between the spirit world and theirs is thinning. They find a forest with burnt panda statues, which are sacred to the forest spirits. The spirit world is like a parallel dimension, accessible to the Avatar and a few others with spiritual abilities, where astral beings reside. In the spirit world, only the Avatar can bridge both realms, but a few spiritually gifted humans can enter too. After a night of meditation, Aang connects to the spirit world, accidentally taking Katara and Sokka with him due to the thin boundary. They then meet a wise owl spirit, but as humans, they're seen as intruders and can't communicate with other spirits. The owl spirit warns them about a dangerous monster in the spirit world, revealing harsh truths humans can't accept. Soon after, they encounter trouble when an angry spirit monster appears, as predicted by the owl spirit. Aang realizes the attacking monster is a furious forest spirit, enraged by the Fire Nation's destruction of its home. The monster emits mist, causing Katara to experience painful memories of her mother's death at the hands of Fire Nation soldiers. Similarly, Sokka is shown memories of his past when he was honored as a Water Tribe Knight, but he feels inadequate knowing he received the title with his uncle's help, not solely through his own efforts. These revelations deeply affect both Katara and Sokka. Meanwhile, Aang, who already understands that everything he will see is hallucinations, instead meets the true form of the spirit that devours the souls of Katara Sokka and the previous village residents named Ko, who reveals that he devours souls and knows about Aang stealing from him in a past life. Aang then tries to get out of the hallucinatory mist, but he instead meets his deceased mentor, who says that he refuses to reincarnate and instead remains in the spirit world. His mentor then warns him that his friends are in danger of being consumed by Ko if they cannot escape the mist. Unfortunately, his mentor cannot help and only explains that according to history, Avatar Roku, the previous generation Avatar from the Fire Nation, once fought with him and defeated Ko. Determined to learn more, Aang decides to seek guidance from Avatar Roku at his temple in the Fire Nation. Meanwhile, Prince Zuko and Uncle Iroh search for Aang. They even stop by one of the shops to inquire about the whereabouts of a waterbender in the area, where Prince Zuko intentionally keeps the Avatar a secret so that news of the Avatar's return does not spread. However, the news of the Avatar's presence with a waterbender has already spread in the village they visit. Amidst their worries, Prince Zuko and Uncle Iroh were surprised when a woman named June appeared. She was a skilled bounty hunter riding a Shih-Tzu, and she had come to collect a debt. Uncle Iroh saw an opportunity and suggested hiring her to capture Aang. Though June's fee was high, she promised to only take payment upon completing her task. Knowing this, Zuko agreed to the deal. The next day, problems arose on Prince Zuko's ship as Commander Zhao took over command, appointed by Fire Lord Ozzy. With his new position, technically, Prince Zuko was supposed to follow Zhao's orders now. Despite this, Zuko tried to direct his crew back to their original course. Sadly, nobody listened, fearing to disobey Commander Zhao's commands. Furthermore, many of Prince Zuko's crew relied on him for years, enduring his harsh treatment. Consequently, they began to lose respect for him. Uncle Iroh, hearing their complaints, reminded them that they didn't fully understand what Prince Zuko had been through. Meanwhile, Aang found himself in the Fire Nation territory, seeking guidance from Avatar Roku at his temple, just as he had with Avatar Kyoshi before. However, upon arrival, he was attacked by the temple's monk guards, who should have remained neutral, but instead sided with Fire Lord Ozzy. Fortunately, there is one young monk who still holds firm to the Avatar's teachings, and he leads Aang to where the Avatar Roku temple is located. Without wasting much time, Aang immediately begins his ritual, while the young monk tries to hold off the other monks who are trying to capture Aang. In the spirit world, Aang finally meets Avatar Roku, who surprises him by being quite different from the typical Fire Nation resident. Despite Roku's fondness for jokes, Aang gets straight to the point, seeking advice on defeating Ko to save his friends. Legend has it that only Avatar Roku has ever defeated Ko, but Roku clarifies that he merely stole a valuable totem from Ko as revenge for devouring the soul of a past Avatar. Upon hearing this, Aang is determined to end it and return the object to the spirit Ko, because in their previous meeting, he also asked about an object stolen by the Avatar from him. Aang then ends the meeting and takes the mentioned totem to bring back to the spirit world. After leaving the spirit world, Aang is suddenly attacked by June, who was hired by Uncle Iroh, causing him to lose consciousness. Upon awakening, Aang has been handed over to Prince Zuko by June and is immediately taken aboard their ship. Although Aang pleads for a little time so he can first save his friends, Prince Zuko completely ignores him and continues on their journey. Unfortunately, Commander Zhao and his troops intercept them, capturing Aang on orders from Fire Lord Ozzy. Prince Zuko, unable to intervene, watches as they take on to a Fire Nation defense fort in the city. However, when night falls, Zuko decides to go alone using a ninja costume, even without his uncle's knowledge, to free Aang from the tightly guarded Fire Nation fortress. Sneaking past guards without using his firebending, he reaches Aang's cell. But as they attempt to escape, they're caught. Zuko, knowing Aang must stay alive for the Avatar cycle, threatens Aang with a sword, forcing Commander Zhao to let them go. However, once they were outside the fortress, Commander Zhao immediately ordered an archer to eliminate Zuko, fortunately only hitting the tip of his mask, causing a superficial scratch, Here, Aang finally realizes that it was Prince Zuko himself who saved him. Aang then decides to return the favor by saving Zuko from the pursuit of the Fire Nation troops, believing that Zuko must have had a reason for wearing the mask. It's as if Aang realizes that there's something different about Prince Zuko. Once Prince Zuko wakes up in a shack, he quickly becomes agitated and tries to attack Aang. He's afraid of appearing weak, a lesson ingrained by his father, who taught him that compassion is a sign of weakness. As a future leader of the Fire Nation, he feels pressure not to show any weakness. Luckily, due to his injuries, Zuko's attempt is easily stopped by Aang, and he faints again. Not wanting to linger with Zuko, Aang takes him to a rowboat that Zuko had prepared for escape and sends him away so he can return to his ship. Meanwhile, Aang continues his mission to retrieve Ko's totem and save Katara and Sokka from the spirit world. Meanwhile, Uncle Iroh, deeply worried about Zuko's whereabouts, remains on deck as the crew is clueless about Zuko's location. In this moment, Uncle Iroh decides to share Zuko's past with the crew, who previously had a negative view of him, revealing a different side to Prince Zuko. Back when Zuko had long hair and was in his early college years, he was groomed to be the next Fire Lord after his father. Unlike his father, young Zuko was compassionate and cared for all Fire Nation troops, regardless of rank. This was evident during a meeting discussing the plan to attack the Earth Kingdom territory, known for its strong defenses. Zuko opposed a plan that involved sacrificing a battalion of weaker Fire Nation soldiers to lure out the Earth Kingdom's defense. His compassionate stance embarrassed his father, leading to a one-on-one combat ritual between them. Despite Zuko's plea for forgiveness, his father punished him with a scar on his left eye, viewing his compassion as a weakness. After that incident, Zuko was finally banished by his father, and he was tasked with a seemingly impossible mission to capture the Avatar. His father even sent the very division Zuko had saved to accompany him, showing the crew's lives were spared due to his bravery. Shortly after Uncle Iroh recounted the incident, Zuko returned to the ship, where he finally received the respect he deserved from the crew, despite his imperfect leadership style. However, trouble found him again when his subordinates delivered a message that his father had ordered Commander Zhao to fetch Prince Zuko and would be tried for suspected treason, suspecting him as the masked person who saved Aang. Urged by Uncle Iroh, Zuko prepared to leave on the rowboat, only to find it rigged with explosives, a trap set by Commander Zhao. Despite Zhao's feigned sympathy, it's clear he orchestrated the whole scheme. Uncle Iroh quickly suspects that Fire Lord Ozai himself may be behind the trap. He's also puzzled by Ozai's decision to appoint Commander Zhao, who lacks experience leading large fleets, to attack the Northern Water Tribe. As their ship approaches the Northern Water Tribe territory, Uncle Iroh questions Commander Zhao about their war tactics. He points out the formidable ice wall protecting the tribe, a barrier the Fire Nation has never breached. Despite this, Commander Zhao is confident in their success. He boasts about their ship's advanced weapons and hints at a secret weapon stored in a box. However, Commander Zhao remains unaware that Prince Zuko is alive and disguised among the soldiers. Uncle Iroh then tells Zuko about Zhao's plans, with a direct frontal assault on the Northern Water Tribe. Concerned for their safety, Uncle Iroh suggests they devise a backup plan. Meanwhile, in the Fire Nation, Azula fights in a trial to prove herself worthy of hunting the Avatar like Zuko. Despite winning her initial fight, Fire Lord Ozai is unsatisfied, wanting his daughter to be even more ruthless. In the next round, Azula refuses to fight, fed up with her father's demands. Instead, she attacks him using fire enhanced into lightning control, demonstrating her readiness to leave the palace and capture the Avatar. Meanwhile, after rescuing Katara and Sokka from Ko's threat, they continued their journey to the Northern Water Tribe. Eventually, they reached the city, a stunning place still free from Fire Nation control due to its geographical location surrounded by a giant ice wall, making it difficult for the Fire Nation to attack. News of the Avatar's arrival spread quickly, and Aang was warmly welcomed by the tribe leader, who introduced Master Pakku, a senior waterbending master, and his daughter, Princess Yu. Katara and Sokka were also embraced warmly, as the southern and northern water tribes share ancestry. They then learned about the Fire Nation's invasion plans from nearby scouting ships. Aang's presence brought hope to the people, but when asked for guidance in defending against the Fire Nation, Aang admitted he had only mastered airbending and sought their help to learn waterbending. Disappointed, the tribe chief and Master Pakku had to face the reality of defending themselves without the Avatar's immediate aid. Witnessing the disappointment, Aang turned to Princess Yu for help to reach the Avatar Kuruk Temple, seeking guidance from the Avatar before Roku and Kyoshi. Yu recounted how Avatar Kuruk had often spent more time in the spirit world, leading to less respect from the people. Despite this, Aang was determined to seek his assistance, as Kyoshi had done before. However, when Aang met Avatar Kuruk, he was scolded. Kuruk explained that his enemies were from the spirit world, not the human world. He fought tirelessly against astral monsters until his wife fell victim, leaving him depressed and his soul fragile. Kuruk then emphasized that an Avatar must bear heavy burdens alone. Meanwhile, Sokka had a private conversation with Princess Yu, realizing they had met in the spirit world when he saw her hairpin. Yu then shared her story, explaining that when she was born, she was often sick, and her father prayed to the moon spirit for her. The moon spirit granted part of its essence to Yu, giving her silver hair and the ability to bridge the two worlds like an avatar. Meanwhile, Katara found a female waterbending master to teach her. She was impressed by the advancement of waterbending techniques, similar to Azula's development of lightning bending in firebending. The Northern Water Tribe had developed healing waterbending techniques, particularly among women. However, Katara was disappointed to discover the tribe's tradition of not allowing women to fight. Despite challenging this rule, Master Pakku maintained that women weren't strong enough to fight, leaving Katara feeling uneasy. Refusing to accept Master Pakku's recent remarks, Katara decided to challenge him to a duel to prove that women could fight just as well as men. Even if she lost, she was determined to find peace of mind. Initially, Master Pakku rejected her challenge, considering her unworthy. However, when Katara attacked him from behind, he was provoked into accepting. In the duel, Katara unleashed all her self-taught techniques to demonstrate women's fighting abilities. Master Pakku, feeling pressured, also used all his skills to counter her attacks. Despite losing, Master Pakku acknowledged Katara's talent as a waterbender, admitting she was even better than most male waterbenders. As the duel concluded, the Fire Nation's war fleet finally arrived at the Northern Water Tribe's territory. Aang, Katara, and Sokka embarked on a mission to sabotage a Fire Nation warship, aiming to disrupt the fleet's coordination. However, they were taken aback when they discovered the Fire Nation was far more prepared than expected, with hundreds of ships. Realizing the gravity of the situation, they rushed back to report their findings, prompting the Northern Water Tribe to prepare for an all-out defense. Katara pleaded with Master Pakku to set aside the tribe's old rules and allow everyone to contribute to the defense effort. Meanwhile, Commander Zhao had a different plan in mind. He intended to use a hot air balloon, designed by Tio, to sneak directly to the Northern Water Tribe's weakness, the moon spirit, as the source of the tribe's power. Under the cover of night, Zhao, accompanied by Uncle Iroh and some soldiers, made their way to the Oasis Pond, the most sacred area of the tribe. Earlier, Zhao had received information from a firebender monk about the Water Tribe's power source from the moon and ocean spirits. The moon spirit controlled their power, and during every full moon, the tribe's power peaked. At the same time, the moon spirit and the ocean spirit would appear in physical forms to meet, providing an opportunity for Commander Zhao to eliminate the moon spirit using Avatar Kuruk's spirit world knife. Uncle Iroh strongly opposed Zhao's plan, knowing it would disrupt the world's balance. However, Zhao, driven by ambition and his position as fleet leader, ignored Iroh's warnings. Meanwhile, Aang received a warning from Avatar Kuruk about the danger to the spirits. Aang rushed to enlist Katara's help to stop Zhou's plan, but they were interrupted by Prince Zuko, who had infiltrated Zhou's ship to capture Aang. While Katara confronted Zuko, Aang continued his search, leaving them evenly matched in their abilities. As Katara battled Prince Zuko, Aang reached the oasis of the Northern Water Tribe and reunited with Sokka and Yu. When Aang saw Commander Zhao holding the manifestation of the moon spirit captive, he offered to surrender if Zhao released it. Seeing an opportunity, Uncle Iroh launched a surprise attack to free the moon spirit, but Zhao retaliated with his spirit knife, causing the full moon to disappear. Without the moon, waterbenders lost their powers. With no other option, Aang made a drastic decision to surrender himself to become a vessel for the ocean spirit. In doing so, he channeled his anger, rendering the Fire Nation's efforts ineffective, though at the cost of his own and the ocean spirit's peace. Amidst the chaos, Uncle Iroh hurriedly escorted Prince Zuko away, anticipating further destruction. Soon, Zuko spotted Commander Zhao attempting to flee and attacked him in a fit of rage, blaming him for the failure of their plans. In the heat of the battle, Zuko realized a harsh truth that his role as a prince was merely to serve as a negative example to motivate Azula, who was actually being groomed to become the next Fire Lord. Zhao confessed that Azula was the mastermind behind their schemes, using Zuko as bait. Meanwhile, after the ocean spirit unleashed a tsunami, destroying the Fire Nation fleet, Yu devised a plan to restore the moon spirit and calm the ocean spirit's rage. She then sacrificed herself, as part of the moon spirit resided within her, thus fulfilling her destiny despite the ultimate sacrifice. When the moon reappeared, the ocean spirit's anger vanished, returning to its original state. Aang, who was trapped, was freed, marking the end of the Great War between the Water Tribe and the Fire Nation. Despite the city's devastation and many casualties, the Northern Water Tribe expressed gratitude to Aang, Sokka, and Katara, particularly Master Pakku, who learned from Katara that water symbolizes necessary change in life. However, the end of the battle didn't mean the end of Aang's journey. He still needed to master the other three elements to become a fully realized avatar. Sokka and Katara pledged to accompany him on this quest. Meanwhile, Fire Lord Ozzy learned that their attack on the Northern Water Tribe had failed and the Avatar was alive. He wasn't surprised, knowing the Northern Territory's difficulty to conquer. The attack was just a diversion as their true target was the city of Omashu. Led by Azula, the Fire Nation forces succeeded in capturing King Bumi, marking the first time in a century that Omashu fell to the Fire Nation. The story then comes to an end. Moral lesson from the story: in the world of bending, like when you bend a straw, it's important to remember not to bend your responsibilities, or else you might end up twisted in a knot of noodle.